What's going on, you rogues, rebels, and renegades? Welcome to episode 68 of the Rogue Country podcast. I am Mike West. We have an amazing episode for you today. Roseanne Reid has joined us for a brand new episode. She's a returning guest, and she has an album out, Lawside, which just came out on June 2nd. It is phenomenal. You need to go listen to it. We get into that. We also get into she is touring with Steve Earle across the UK and Europe right now, so make sure you don't miss those dates. She is playing York on June 9th. June 10th is Whitley Bay, June 11th Edinburgh, June 13th Galway, June 17th Birmingham, June 19th Buxton, June 21st Liverpool, June 22nd Bristol, June 25th London, June 27th Belfast, and June 28th Sligo, and then June 29th is Dublin, all with Steve Earle. They're going to be amazing shows. We get into it because I am absolutely gutted to be missing the Liverpool show. We get into the whole thing. I really wanted to talk to Roseanne because she has been balancing being an artist, being a touring musician, being a recording musician, on top of being a mother. And 2 days after we recorded this episode and I picked her brain on how she does it, my little one, my first son, Wyatt, arrived in the world on 26th of May. He arrived early. He was meant to arrive on June 7th, which was why I can't do any gigs in June, which is a fair trade for how goddamn cute he is. But it was amazing to talk to Roseanne before this because, you know, being a musician and having a family and having a baby can change things, but I see so many incredible musicians who are balancing family life and work life so well that it's so inspiring, and I cannot wait to get back out there. But in the meantime, I have this wonderful podcast where I get to talk to phenomenal musicians like Roseanne. But before we get into this episode, let's hear from our sponsor. Today we are brought to you by Pick Print Screen Printing. They're a Liverpool-based family-run hand screen printing company, and I love these guys. They do my t-shirts, they do the Rogue Country t-shirts, they do Josh Bettis' t-shirts. So if you need band merch, workwear, business uniforms, club or sports team wears, or apparel lines, please get in touch with them. They use eco-friendly inks. It's all done by hand, and they're just an incredible company to work with. I love them, and you should go support them. And what is going on in the world of Rogue Country? Well, Jesse Daniels' tour is rolling up on us in August. He is going to be playing London on the 14th of August, Swansea on the 15th of August, and Birkenhead on the 16th of August. London is completely sold out. Swansea and Birkenhead are selling really well, so if you want to see this tour, Jesse Daniels' first UK tour, you better get your tickets. Josh Bettis is supporting, and it is going to be a phenomenal 3-show run. What else is happening? We are bringing Tommy Prine to Birkenhead on August 30th. It's going to be amazing. Then, you know, we aren't stopping there. We've got 2 Hank 100 shows on September 17th, one in Birkenhead at the Swinging Arm, one at the Bunkhouse in Swansea. Phenomenal lineups on either side, and you won't want to miss it. Tickets are available at our Rogue Country Linktree, which will be linked in this episode. And we aren't stopping there, guys. Just announced we are bringing the Local Honeys to Future Yard in Birkenhead on the 9th of November. We've just announced it. Tickets are available in our group. We're going to be doing a wider announcement, but you heard it here first. Grab your tickets for that. They're doing a very limited run, and you will not want to miss these shows. We are so proud to be bringing these acts to the UK and bringing them to Birkenhead and Swansea, places that usually don't get a look in, and we're proud to be part of just this amazing community. So speaking of this community, what else is going on this year? The Rustic Stomp Festival is happening in July from the 14th to the 16th. The lineup is incredible. You know you need to go. Pat Reid has been hitting UK shores in May, and he's coming back in June with a few extra dates. He's playing What's Cooking in London on the 21st of June, The Grove in Leeds on the 22nd of June, and on the 23rd of June he's playing with Chris Dover and Jody Davis at the Underground in Bradford. That is Rogue approved. You know you need to go to those shows. Bernard Band is opening for Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band on 18th of July, and it is phenomenal to see those guys doing so well. I need to get Lewis on the podcast. I've messaged him, but a baby has kind of delayed all future episodes. I'm going to try and do my best to get more episodes out. I've got a Jesse Daniel interview queued up, which will be the one after this, so please bear with me. But let's get down to it, guys. Without further ado, this is episode 68 of the Rogue Country podcast with Mike West and Roseanne Reid. It's been, yeah, I literally just checked before I came on because I was like, I wonder with podcasts and you just lose track of time and when people have been on. But yeah, the episode that you were on came out in April of 2021, and I thought it was like last year or something. But yeah, time's really flown.
That sped by, and as well, that was sort of in the middle. Well, not in the middle, but still sort of pandemic time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
God, yeah, that it feels like a different sort of lifetime now, doesn't it? It feels like we're sort of through the other side, which is nice, but the actual memories of that time are just so strange.
Yeah, everything's just kind of like blended together, and it's but you've had an incredibly hectic and productive and amazing 2 years.
Yeah, it's been nice in the sense that I've been able to sort of continue either writing or releasing or
Mm,
an occasion performing music as well. But mainly just writing and releasing. So the horticulture EP came out that was a couple of years ago now.
mm,
And that was sort of written mid-pandemic and recorded, and so that was never really. I mean, it's an EP. I guess you wouldn't really expect to tour it, but it's nice to, if I do shows now, I'm able to play those songs for
mm.
which is great. And then this album that's going to come out next month, that was a lot of that was written during the last couple, 2 or 3 years as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, it's things have never stopped with the music, which has been nice. I've been able to keep it ticking over in a sense.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's the nice thing because also you're a mum now as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that was one of the good things I kind of saw about COVID. One of the silver linings was, touring is such a huge part of what a musician does. But when
Yeah.
COVID took that away, people found alternate things, and you kind of realized you don't have to gig constantly to kind of maintain a fan base or, maintain some sort of momentum. And it's
Yeah.
been nice to kind of see people not necessarily take the foot off the gas a bit, but, be a bit more conscious about when they play, and especially
Yeah.
having a baby and stuff, that's got to come into a factor of, picking and choosing when you're actually going to gig or record or, do anything music related.
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, I don't think you can fully prepare yourself really for just how big an impact
Mm.
having a baby will make on your everyday life, and scheduling and planning. You can plan things all you like, but it's just things go out the window last minute all the time, and you just sort of kind of have to roll with that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think when it comes to bigger things like touring, yeah, I am finding myself now going looking ahead to tours that are maybe a couple of weeks long or
Mm.
longer. And I go, well, if because our boy's 9 months now,
Mm.
he's going into nursery in a couple of months, and I go, well, can I really afford to be away for that amount of
Mm.
time? Childcare is expensive and it's a
Yeah.
big thing. Obviously, with this tour next month, that's a month-long tour. That'll be the longest tour I've done with Steve Earle. But it's nice because our baby's not in nursery yet. We're able to do that as a family.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'm bringing my wife and little baby with me, which is really nice. But it's kind of the only time I'll get to do it that way.
Mm.
It's quite a unique experience in that sense. So, yeah, it's just. I think when it came to recording the album, it was quite nice because I recorded it very locally to where we
Mm.
live. So I wasn't having to be away for a solid week at a time. I could go away for, 5 or 6 hours during the day, come back. And that worked really well. So it's been fine so far, but I think moving forward, yeah, it'll become more and more of a challenge to navigate, you know, family life and
Yeah.
yeah, what do you choose and how long are you away for, and yeah, all that to come.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, and that's one of the things I was excited to talk to you about because obviously I knew you had a baby. I can't believe he's 9 months. That's gone fast from when I saw it on Facebook and everything. But I've got a baby due 2 weeks today.
Oh, fantastic. Oh,
Yeah, thank
congratulations.
you. But that's one of the things where I've been turning down gigs and clearing my schedule, and
Yeah,
I've even with podcasts and stuff. I'm like, if I can record like 4 or 5 in the next like week or two, I can
yeah,
just schedule them and leave it to run so I don't have to do anything. But it
yeah,
does completely change your like whole outlook on things and how you will tour and stuff. And it's amazing to see, it's a huge credit to the partner you're with, really, that they like gonna,
yeah,
be there for you and support that on top of, having a baby as well. It's crazy.
yeah, absolutely. It's just, I mean, I think I like to think our other halves know that sort of when it's kind of like they know what they're signing up for
Yeah.
to a degree, but when things start that our schedules are not 9 to 5.
No.
Compromises have to be made all the time. So um, it's really nice, as you say, if you've got a partner that can support that and that can accommodate, and especially when a kid comes along, which is when you just have to make all sorts of sacrifices anyway.
Yeah.
You need to be a united front at that time. You need to be a team, because my God, the work that goes into it,
Yeah.
there is the whole thing.
Yeah. No, because that's what I'm anticipating. Because it's even, people have offered me gigs later in the year, and I'm like, they're too far away. If I can do like Manchester, which is an hour away, maybe, but if it's anything longer than that, I don't want to risk not being able to come back at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, that's it. And I did the same thing. So when I knew Fiona was due, we had a sort of a due date, but the plans
Yeah.
changed. I was mid tour with Martha Wainwright, and our plans changed with the birth side of things. So I said, look, I'm going to have to miss the last 3-4 dates of the tour, because my wife needs me at home. And then from that onwards, I'd sort of said to Ian, who manages me, I said, look, the next few months, clear it. I don't want any diary. And I'm in a very fortunate position that I can do that, because for a lot of partners, you don't get that amount of time off and spend at home and bond with the baby. But to me, that was just the most important thing, So I'm not one to be away for a week, 3 or 4 hours away.
No.
When a newborn, it eats up every minute of your day. Yeah, you're right. In a nutshell, you're right. Just to prioritize that for the next wee while.
Yeah, because that's the thing. But I think it's the same thing with a lot of stuff in music. There's such an established tradition of how touring's supposed to be and what you're meant to do that no one's really kind of analyzed it in the last 50 or so years. Because you look at how tour schedules are now, they're the same as the 50s. But you read in all the autobiographies, all the artists from the 50s and 60s, they were on speed, and then they were on downers, and then they were on booze, and it's you can clearly tell that touring schedule is not meant to work for a human being on sober, basically. And it's one of those things where you have to look at it and go, well, if they did a week on, week off, or they only did Friday to Monday, they did something better. How many would have avoided burnout? How many would have avoided addiction?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where obviously music doesn't pay well, but there should be a balance, and you're not killing yourself to try and hit 20 cities in 20 days, because it just ruins a person.
Oh yeah, and as you say, there's only so much the human body is designed to do, and it's not meant to go for that length of time. With all the travel, with all the adrenaline, and it's non-stop, and it's you need breaks. Your body needs time to reset. So I totally agree, and that's why it's that there is, as you say, there's still a pressure, there's still an expectation to fulfill a certain amount of touring per year, especially if you've got an album out or any sort of music out and you want to tour it. But I think that's when you sort of, if you can take onus of that and put your foot down and go, well, actually, this is how much I'm willing to commit to. And the rest is just going to have to, sort of fall where it may. I'm not the sort of person that's going, music is the be all and end all for me. It's, this is, I've got family, I've got life. So I'm absolutely just trying to balance those two things. But yes, you can definitely still feel that sort of pressure to go, say yes to everything, absolutely.
Yeah, and there was an amazing podcast I listened to a few years back. I don't know if you know the band The Lovely Eggs.
Yes.
They're a punk band, but they're a husband and wife duo, and they had a baby, and they were on the Distraction Pieces podcast, Rubius Pips, and they talked about, they had a baby, and they're full-time musicians, so how did they kind of deal with it? And it was they had a nanny, kind of a friend of the family, come, and it was just travel lodges, and that baby toured with them the entire time as a newborn, which is incredible with a newborn. But then you think about, I can't remember her name, but the mom, to be not only with a newborn but then touring as well on top of that. It was an insane listen. It's mad respect to The Lovely Eggs.
Yeah, I'll definitely have a listen to that, just because I do obviously I'm the musician, and then my partner does that sort of 9 to 5. So she's in a much more sort of stable and regular position. But I do have friends that are in relationships where they're both musicians, they've started families, and they do that. They
Mm,
tour, or um, they find a way to make it work so they don't have to stop touring.
yeah.
And I remember the newborn days so vividly, and they're just a whirlwind. You know, both of you at home full time. You're just running on adrenaline. You're exhausted all the time, and I just go, how on earth do you do that on the road?
Yeah.
It's just so yeah, I have a lot of respect for people that do it, but I wouldn't fancy it. Thinking
No.
back, as I'm going, I'm glad we were at home.
No, but with obviously going on to touring, you're touring with Steve Earle. He's duetted with Sweet Annie on your first record. How
Yeah.
did that tour kind of come about? Was that because I know he's playing Black Deer and you are as well?
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
this kind of concocted around the festival and stuff?
It wasn't really. That sort of Black Deer fell into place after the tour was confirmed.
Mm,
I've done Black Deer once before, a couple of years ago, and I'm really looking forward to playing again because it is a great Americana festival. But yeah, that sort of fell into place afterwards. It was basically, I mean, obviously I've got that sort of prior relationship with Steve. I've done a couple of his songwriting
mm,
camps. He's featured in the first album, which was brilliant. And my manager just sort of built on that, and sort of went to Steve's, the guy that represents Steve over here for touring,
mm.
touring agent over here. And I, I think how these things work, it probably it differs from act to act, but I think it was sort of presented as, well, do you need a support? Do you need an opening act for this tour? If so, then how about Roseanne? And
Mm.
that's luckily they gave that the green light, which is really nice. But yeah, I think it was helped by the fact that I've got that prior
Yeah,
relationship, and he's familiar with what I do and how I work. So, yeah, I think that definitely helped the pitch.
awesome. I know because I'm furious that everyone seems to be booking gigs in June because
Yeah,
you're coming to Liverpool with Steve. Because I saw Steve, I was like, oh, amazing. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, I wonder if because I know you have that part. I was like, I wonder if Roseanne's gonna be opening, and then it was, and I'm
yeah.
like, I can't go to fucking any gigs in June.
Oh,
So like to say I'm gutted about missing this is an understatement, but I'm really looking forward to having my baby, and he's going to be my little headliner for that month, and I'm just going to make him entertain me as much as he can.
absolutely, and he certainly will. Believe me, you'll never be short of entertainment.
With obviously the tour starts June, I think I got it here, June 9th. Your album comes out June 2nd. Was that kind of always the plan, or when that tour kind of fell into place, was it, I want to try and get the album out before the tour?
Well, you know what? It was pure chance, and it
Oh,
was
no
pure
way.
luck. Yeah, that actually we sort of and this, I mean, this album's taken an age to get done. So again, that sort of ties in with incredibly, it's fallen at just the right time for this tour. But it's been at this album for about a year and a half.
Mm,
Just back and forth to the studio, and it's just with scheduling and with having a baby. Obviously, it's just put things back, but.
mm,
No, it was just pure luck that it coincided with the start of this tour, which is perfect.
mm,
Um, just because, and I think it probably takes a little bit of pressure off me to do a headline tour as well,
yeah.
because I'm going to be doing this for a month and playing to all these new audiences. Um, if I do decide to do a little headline tour to promote this album, um, then it's nice because I'll have hopefully sort of increased my audience through this
Yeah.
tour, and laid a bit of groundwork there. So, yeah, but it was pure chance, which is just thank God, thank God it's taken place when it is.
Yeah. No, awesome. And with the album I've been listening to the last couple of days, and it's fucking brilliant.
Oh,
Um,
thank
the thing that kind of grabbed me on the initial listen of it was a perfect to release it in June. Like to me, when I listen to it, it is a summer album, but
you.
it's
Yeah,
not like a summer album of a party and like a barbecue or anything. But it's one of those ones that I was like, this is an album you listen to like when the sun rises or when you're going on like a drive along like a long
Yeah.
road and the sun's shining and stuff. Was it the plan to release it in June because you thought it had that vibe, or like when you were kind of constructing the track, or did you think what kind of month you were going to be releasing it in?
I didn't, to be honest. It wasn't really planned. I think the priority was always just get it finished and take the time you need to do that properly. Um, I think as a finished piece, yes, to me, absolutely, it sounds like a summer album. Totally agree. And I think it's nice that there probably was that sort of thought in the back of my mind the whole time of this should be a summer release because that's when all the touring's going to take place, so it's naturally going to fall to it's going to be a natural time to tour it and promote it. But yeah, I think it's been a happy coincidence that it's taken on the sort of atmosphere it
Mm.
has, and actually it fits really well with coming out in June. So again, just another happy accident
Mm.
with this record.
Awesome. And you said you were writing this for around 2 or 3 years, so it was kind of written over the pandemic and stuff, and but then it was recorded kind of over a year and a half.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, the songs, I didn't really have a schedule in terms of after the first album came out. Um, when Trails came out, I thought I'd love to release my next record within a
Mm.
year and a half max. And here we are 4 years later, and it's just about to come
Yeah.
out, and I go, it's obviously things have happened, but no, I didn't really have a schedule in terms of getting from start to finish. And it's just sort of, the songs were written. I think having the time during the pandemic to get them written really helped.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just not. I don't work to those sorts of schedules.
Yeah.
Just I can't, and that's why it's taken so long to record as well, because I go off on tangents and I get distracted, and and I think that's it's a gift and a curse having a sort of loose schedule like
Yeah.
that, because I go, well, I can actually just sort of come back to it, which has been nice. And the reason we didn't record it in the traditional sense of having 5, 6 musicians in a room together at the same time over the course of a few days was because when we started, it was still at the tail end of the pandemic. So
Mm.
there was still a bit of uncertainty and anxiety about having too many people in a room together.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's just do this bit by bit,
Mm.
add the instruments as and when, layer it, get the overdubs in. So it's been more drawn out, but it's worked out, thankfully.
Yeah. And did you think that was, a blessing or a curse that it was a bit more drawn out? Because sometimes you can start agonizing over placements a bit more when everything's kind of so fast. It's just kind of what sounds amazing and it's the initial gut feeling. But then, if you can listen to it 3 or 4 times over the course of like a few weeks or a month, you can be like, should that be there? Or you start agonizing over every detail.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite fortunate in that sense, in that I'm so far from a perfectionist, So it was just like I've listened to, and like I can count on one hand actually the little things that have changed in terms of the details from recording to actually getting it mixed and mastered, because I got most of it. Lucky to get some great local musicians on it that were just very capable and knew what they had to do. So there were very little corrections or things that had to be done differently on it. And I'm still a firm believer in try and get it in a couple of takes. I'm performing live, and I think that sort of atmosphere and the excitement and what you create in those first couple of attempts, you can't really replicate that in later takes.
No.
And you can pick it apart all you want, but to me, I can't think of any songs I've recorded that have been improved after changing things around 100 times and shifting it about. So they were all done, fairly quickly in that sense. But again, it's been the scheduling, it's taken the time to throw that out to a year and a half.
Yeah, no, definitely. And going back to, kind of the expectations of the music industry, it is, a more drawn out process now, especially with an independent artist where you are bringing out an album every year. I saw because I'm a huge Creedence Clearwater fan.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
they brought 3 albums out in one year in like the
Oh
'70s, and it's like, with they had major label back, and that was their entire job and entire focus. So it's like, of course, they brought 3 albums out, and you see, artists in like those decades were just cranking out albums every
yeah.
year. But that's even the major artists like Adele disappears every fucking 5 years. She's like Pennywise. It's like one of those things where everyone, it has like slowed down, especially independent artists need to be able to afford the studio time and the musicians, and
Yeah.
it is a longer process now, but I do think the audience respect that, and they are like, ready to wait however long.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, it never, I mean, it doesn't do you any harm, really, if you've got someone like John Fogerty at the helm and, writing those sorts of songs. So I think it does. I mean, you're right. I think when it comes to independent artists now, budget's such a big thing, time's such a big thing. And it's not that, in a sense, is where the industry's changed, I think,
Mm,
quite dramatically over the past few decades. And that it's, there's less scope now, I think, as an independent artist to fully immerse yourself in music year after year and just
mm,
focus on writing and releasing music because it doesn't, how do you make money?
yeah,
That's all fine and well if your albums are raking in a good amount per year, but most people don't have that now. So you do need to find other ways to make money, stabilize yourself, then write and record the music and do it that way. And I think it's a much more sort of formulaic uh, way of approaching it now. You get your money together, that you work, and then you can focus on a record. But
yeah,
um, yeah, very. I mean, it's changed days, since the '70s, definitely.
yeah. No, but with the songwriting of this album, obviously, like the albums come out now. You're a
Yeah.
parent. You were writing it before, but a lot of it kind of has that like lens, or with them, couldn't wish more for you and things like
Mm.
that. With those songs, were they written obviously prior to him arriving, and then did you look at them afterwards and go, oh, it kind of fell into place in a more like a way you couldn't even interpreted it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I couldn't wish more for you. I think is actually the oldest song on there,
Mm,
and that was. I think a lot of people will interpret it as a message for our son, but and it is very much so. But it was written on like Hogmanay a couple of years ago, and
mm,
it was more just like a message for the people I love generally going into the new year.
mm,
Um, but I think now, yeah, absolutely. When I sing it now, I've sung it a couple of times since Brody was born, and it's just like you can feel yourself getting choked up
mm,
because you do. I can't help but think of him now when I sing
yeah,
it, and that's been a bit unexpected because I've not really had songs that have taken on a new meaning in that
mm,
way before. But I think in terms of the inspiration from him and from becoming a parent and that side of things, I'd like to do a completely separate record for that. I'd
yeah,
love to do like an album of lullabies or that sort of thing.
mm,
That's right up my street. So, yes, definitely a couple of songs on Lawside that are could be interpreted in that way. But I'd like to do him his own album. I
yeah.
think.
Mm. And with the writing of this, I picked up on a couple of the songs, especially in All I Need, and there was another one where you
Yeah,
mentioned like the world turning or the world stopped turning. I think
yeah,
that's like a theme that a lot of people, obviously the pandemic, the world kind of stood still. Was
yeah.
that something present in your mind when you were writing this? And, as a songwriter, it must have kind of permeated into your consciousness in some way or the other.
Yeah, or with the pandemic stuff.
Mm,
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, it's affected everyone in different ways, and I think it's affected people in ways that we haven't even seen yet, to be
yeah.
honest. But as a songwriter, yeah, it's such a unique and bizarre and uh, sort of mystifying time where you go, God, thank God I was able to write during that time
Mm,
and capture the essence of some of it at least. But I don't think for me anyway, I remember not feeling. I, I didn't feel scared too much of the time during the
Mm,
pandemic. My partner did, um, and I think that sort of comes across in the songs where it doesn't. It's not like a fear, um, but you still sort of recognise that actually things just stopped,
yeah,
you know, and they stopped for months, and you sort of go, God, how can you sort of? It's not about trying to get that time back, but how do you sort of process that?
yeah,
You know, just and I think especially as a musician, creatively, whatever, but not having any prospect of touring and making money, and um, it was just a very very strange time. So yeah, that's definitely sort of um, found its way into these songs to an extent.
mm,
A couple of them in particular, you're right. Um, but yeah, just as I say, just it almost feels like a fever dream. Looking
mm,
back now, you sort of go, "Oh, what a bizarre time."
yeah. Mm. No, I'm one of like the opening track is obviously all I need. There's
Yeah.
a line on that that I was like, like, I was like, well done. Obviously, you don't need like lots of praise, but it was she don't ever bring me down. She only thinks she does. I was like,
Yeah.
amazing. Obviously, it's so kind of well put. Like every relationship has anxieties and
Yeah.
pressures and things, and it's just so well captured in that kind of story and song of how honest relationships are.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and I think it's you're right. Every relationship has those sort of intricacies and um, little insecurities, and
Mm,
I think no matter how long you've been together, that's what really gets me. It's I still have moments where I question things, and I question um how my partner feels about me, and is it real, and is it going to last? And I go, God, it's just it's moments,
yeah,
um, and I think you have to sort of work your way through them, and the way I do that is through songwriting. But um, it's I just find it fascinating. I find it fascinating the way relationships work, especially long term relationships,
yeah,
um, where you do have to have that trust in the other person, and but of course you're going to have moments of you question
yeah.
things. 7 years in, yeah, I'm still going to question it. It's,
Yeah, I
it's
remember. Yeah,
ridiculous.
I've seen like a thing on the internet where it's like, me on my deathbed with my husband next to me, and it's like, are you sure this isn't a fling?
Oh God, that hits close to home. That one does. Yeah, absolutely. It's and as I say, I do think it's I sort of catch myself sometimes and I go, just stop it, stop being ridiculous. Take a breath. But you do, and I think it's just human nature. You
Yeah,
have times like that where you're never totally secure. Um, and I think as well, the more time goes on, the more invested you are in that person, the more you've invested into the relationship. So the more there is at stake,
yeah.
and it's natural to be insecure about that and to sort of have moments where you go, ah, dear, I'm not too sure about this. But yeah, no, I'm just glad I'm able to sort of filter that through songwriting.
Yeah. No, definitely. And the album cover with your hand and Brody's hand on the guitar is
Yeah,
just adorable.
oh, thank you. You'll have moments like that as
Yeah.
well. It is lovely.
No, I can't wait, but I don't know if you're thinking the same thing where it's, obviously music's such a big part of our lives, but you
Yeah,
don't want to ever like pressure them into playing or, pick up because
yeah,
you don't want them to like run the opposite direction from it. You want them to kind of, you know, have it as an important part in their lives, but you can't,
yeah.
sit them down and put a guitar on them and make them sing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I think obviously it'll be different for every kid, and as they grow up, they'll discover what they like and what they're drawn to and what they're not. But um, I tend to find, if I'm ever sitting there with my guitar, you'll naturally gravitate
Mm,
towards the instrument. They like the noises, they
yeah,
like the look of it, and they're interested in what you're interested in.
yeah,
You know, so I think it's good to have that sort of foundational sort of approach where you go, well, actually, this is, I'm not pushing him in any way. He's just gravitating towards it himself.
yeah.
and he's getting something out of it. I would be careful, I have to say, with Kid Around Guitars. He had I had it in front of him the other day. I was playing, and he pulled himself up and he sort of grabbed the bottom two strings, and it's a steel string guitar,
Mm.
and he's got like a vice grip, and he grabbed them and he's trying to play, but he pulled them back and snapped two strings in his hand, and I just that moment of horror where you look at him and they go, "Has God, has it whipped his face? Is it bleeding?" But it was fine. I just got a fright. But yeah, I just keep an eye on them around your
Yeah.
guitar.
Yeah, no, my nephew had one of my guitars when he was younger, and because they obviously they don't know how to strum, so they just pull it up as
Yeah,
like hard as they can, and it's just like, oh no, like
yeah. Oh, the anxiety is something else.
yeah. But like going back to the album, obviously, I read an article. I can't remember what website it was on, but you were talking about how like you felt more self-assured in this album, especially with like your vocals, so you pushed them
Yeah,
front and center. I really noticed that on like obviously Couldn't Wish More for You was, it's a
yeah,
very like kind of vocal centric song.
yeah.
What was the kind of realization you came through? Was it through like the horticulture EP and things? And obviously you've been doing this for a long time now, so you just must have
Yeah.
been able to settle into that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think back to Trails. That was my first experience, really, of recording a full-length album in a studio with some, some of the best musicians I've ever met around me. And obviously Teddy Thompson producing it. That's quite an intimidating
Mm,
environment to go into, and we did it in Brooklyn, so I'd flown over there, and that's a whole sort of thing in itself. So I think everything just felt quite heightened on
yeah,
Trails. And I felt not the pressure of being in the studio amongst all those sort of great people, but I think just the weight of it.
yeah,
And I sort of felt like, oh, I don't really want to push my voice, my vocal here, because God, they're so good, and I want the instruments to shine as well. Um, Now, not that the instruments were any less brilliantly done on Lawside, but this time I sort of went in with the attitude of, I know my voice has improved these past
mm,
4 years. Just with the shows I've done, and obviously, say with the horticulture EP, and I know I could do it. I know I can sort of, get in front of the mic, and I'm not afraid just to sort of embrace the little sort of quirks in my voice.
mm,
I think I was a bit self conscious about on
yeah,
Trails. So this time, like, well, just go in with the sort of the hope that actually the vocals are going to be much more prominent this time, which is how it's turned out. And I think one of the things that the main differences people will notice between the two albums is you can probably hear the sort of gruffness and the gruff side of my voice on Lawside, which
mm,
has sort of been smoothed out to a large extent on Trails. Now I really like that side of my voice, and I think that it sort of adds a lot of emotion to the delivery
yeah,
and to the songs. So I'm glad that sort of that part of it hasn't been filtered out. It's just been left to do its thing. And I do think it's yeah, that aspect of my voice sort of lends itself to these kind of songs.
mm,
So yeah, I'm glad it's worked out the way it has.
yeah. No, good, and it makes total sense, and it works so well for the album because I
Yeah,
think when you like, unless you're like a trained singer, if you pick up a guitar and start singing, singing's almost like secondary in a way.
yeah,
So it's just, the voice is the voice, and you don't really try and think about it as long as it kind of serves its function. But then as you start like gigging more and you realize you have more of a control over it than you kind of thought.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that part of it does come with gigging and with
Yeah.
doing that many shows. There's nowhere to hide with the voice and with the guitar. So you just sort of you do learn on the job in terms of what your voice can do, what it's capable of, and you learn what you like about it, and maybe what you don't want to push so
Yeah.
much, and you take that into the studio. So it does just. You're right. It sort of comes with doing regular gigs, and yeah, you can sort of pick and choose what you like from that sort of thing. And yeah, I think it's just as I say, when it comes to my voice, it's improved a lot over the past 4 years. Become a lot more confident with it. Um, so it's sort of like it's a bit of a vindication that actually it's so prominent on this
Mm.
album. And I can put that out into the world and feel good about it and not feel sort of self conscious. Which was part of the worry around releasing Trails. I was going, I don't know if that vocal's gonna sell it, but yeah, I'm pleased with this one.
Oh, amazing. With the recording of the album, it was more drawn out process, but the instrumentation on it's so cool. Like there's the slide on Shine On, there's the horn section in Call It Love,
Yeah.
and even the accordion in Mona Lisa. Were those kind of the musicians you had on deck, or was it you like when you'd done Mona Lisa, you were like, we need, this extra flavor on top of this track?
Yeah, I mean, when it came to the musicians, so again, I left the sort of gathering of those musicians to the producer. On this album, it was David McFarlane that produced it, and we recorded the album in Perth, which is just south of
Mm.
Dundee, where I live. And he's a bit of a stalwart in Perth and in that sort of scene, and he knows all the musicians there are to know there. So I sort of said to him, well, look, I'm looking for sort of Americana folk musicians, ideally.
Mm.
And he sort of pulled them together. But obviously, there's a couple of obvious tracks on there, like Mona Lisa, Call It Love, where you've got quite a few instruments at play, and they don't feature across every track. But it was Dave that was in charge of pulling them together, mainly local musicians. I think actually ironically, the bordering player
Mm.
on Mona Lisa, we recruited, I think, from somewhere in Argentina. I think it was just totally, on the other side of the scale. So that was the exception, but the vast majority are local musicians that Dave knows, and with the vocals on the chorus on Mona Lisa with the backing singers, they're all from like a pub that Dave regularly plays at, and he sort of mixes that, and called the Twa Tams in Perth. So it was very much a local affair.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Has that informed, because obviously Trails was done in Brooklyn over like a relatively short period of time.
yeah,
This was done more like closer to home. And obviously, like, it's not just the fact that it was close to home, but it's like your second album after so many times, and where you do feel this confidence. Has that informed, when you eventually go to make a third record, has that
yeah.
informed how or where you're going to record it next?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think, as you say, that they're two very different ways I recorded both albums, and I think going from those experiences, the one I preferred was the one that was closer to
Yeah.
home, and it just far more relaxed across the
Mm.
board. And that's not trying to take away from how cool it was to record Trails the way I did. That was an incredible experience. But I think in terms of how best I can contribute in terms of vocals, presence in the studio, playing. I need to be relaxed, and
Yeah.
I just, for me, that involves keeping it fairly close to home
Yeah.
and not having to travel that much, and actually being quite familiar with the people in the studio. So I think if when it comes to a third record, it will be more similar to the way I recorded Lawside than
Mm.
Trails.
Yeah, because I know sometimes like younger musicians, if they don't get the opportunity to record in Brooklyn or something, they get that kind of it needs to be recorded in Nashville, or they have like a
Yeah.
idea or like a dream in their head, and obviously like that's a really nice thing, but the recording software in Nashville isn't much different to the recording software they can find
So,
in a studio close to home. And I think it is one of those things where comfort and feeling relaxed will always lend itself to a better album, I think.
yeah, definitely. And when it comes to recording in Nashville, and those sorts of places, it's like you've sort of got to keep it in perspective. Like, what is going to get you respect and more gigs and more opportunities is the quality of the songs. It's
Yeah.
the quality of the songwriting. It's not where they were recorded. There's so many albums recorded in Nashville right now. They're 10 a penny. And don't get me wrong, they're fantastic, and the musicians are incredible, but recording somewhere like that is not what makes an album. That's not what gives it sophistication, or that's not what makes it formidable. It's the songs that do that. So I would always advocate for comfort over somewhere with prestige, or perceived prestige. Just record where you feel most comfortable, where you're familiar with the people, with the place, and that's what will get you a great album. Yeah.
No, it makes total sense. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your day and things, so we'll wrap
No,
up there.
listen, I would keep chatting away because I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but I can hear him kicking off upstairs as well. So.
Oh, well, really, really good luck with the tour in June. I know it's going to be amazing. I'm super jealous of all the places you're playing. I'm gutted you're playing so close to home, and I'm not going to be able to make it, but maybe next time on your headlining shows.
Yeah, enjoy your baby boy. That is the main priority.
Yeah, if you're playing and you suddenly hear just a newborn screaming, I've stuck my way in.
I can relate to that, don't worry.
And there we have it, folks. That's episode 68 of the Rogue Country podcast in the bag. Don't miss out on Roseanne's tour with Steve Earle. It is going to be incredible. And make sure you listen to her new album, Lawside, which came out June 2nd. You will not be disappointed. Make sure you catch a Rogue show, buy some tickets, keep supporting the things you love, and keep doing the things you love. Peace.